Joining me now, Curtis Ellis. Curtis, the Senior Policy Advisor for America First Policies, by the way, the only sanctioned political action committee and PAC for President Trump's America First agenda and his reelection campaign. Not to be mistaken with any of the scammer PACs out there. Corey Stewart having one of them that got exposed the other day. Don't give money to them. You don't know where it goes. America First Policies, the only sanctioned PAC for the president's agenda and his reelection campaign. And joining us now is the senior spokesman for America First Policies, Curtis W. Ellis. Curtis, great to have you, man.
That's me. Great Curtis, to be here, John.
Curtis, I mean, we got some stuff going on, man. I had Bannon on yesterday. Do you know that Bannon told me that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, they have gone after him personally with all kinds of attacks in their state-run media. So they're going after Steve Bannon personally.
Personally,
my God. Like he's had to hire security, and they've got all of their state-run media going after him. And I'm thinking to myself, well, the next person they're going to go after is Curtis Ellis, because, Curtis, you have been on the engine of exposing the Chi-Com's fraudulent trade policies and ripping us off for 35 years. These tariffs have gone into play. The president says he's going to raise them again. There's no end in sight. Now the Chinese retaliating, but Curtis, they don't have anything to retaliate with. We have a $500 billion deficit. What are they going to retaliate with? Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. We hold all the high cards in this poker game, folks. And don't believe what you hear on CNBC or any of the other whining and moaning media people. We hold all the high cards. There was a story out recently on Reuters saying that the odd headline says China showing unnerving restraint in the trade war, or disturbing restraint, meaning China, we can't figure out why China isn't hitting us harder, right? And then as you read the story, it notes that China can't retaliate. So they're asking the question, why isn't China retaliating against American companies in China? Because there are still many American companies that have factories or contractors or so-called joint ventures, which are really licenses to steal, but joint ventures factories in China. Well, China has figured out if they retaliate against American companies in China, that just gives those American companies one more reason to head for the exits now. So they can't retaliate against American companies in China. They can't place tariffs on American imports coming into China because there aren't any. So what can they do?
Well, exactly.
Nothing.
Well, they could do nothing. And so, look, this is the first time ever that a U.S. president has stood up to them. Curtis, they just expected this president to roll to remember it's about a year ago where they got Gary Cohn and Mnuchin to claim victory, like a Pyrrhic victory over some deal they made on a soybean somewhere. Oh, there's no trade problems here. They're going to buy another 100 bushels of soybeans. All is good. Remember, we were railing against that. What was it? It was like 15 or 18 months ago, right? Is that not been their playbook forever?
Totally. Bill Clinton ran for president, and he was slamming George H.W. Bush for doing business with the butchers of Beijing. Because in 1991, some of us remember this, 1991, the Chinese Communist Party rolled the tanks right over the people demonstrating in Tiananmen Square.
Right.
Peaceful, pro-democracy demonstrators. And the People's Liberation Army tanks rolled right over them, killed thousands of people. We don't even know how many, because China has erased this from all the history books. You can't even mention the words Tiananmen Square and in China without going to some gulag prison camp somewhere. Bill Clinton, that was fresh in everyone's memory. Bill Clinton was slamming George Bush. Why are we doing business with China after what they did in Tiananmen Square, the butchers of Beijing? So what China did is it got Bill Clinton's advisors, people like Bob Rubin, who is the counterpart of Steve Mnuchin, became Treasury Secretary under the Clinton administration, Wall Street guy, right? Bob Rubin, Wall Street guy, Citibank CEO, and people like that, Larry Summers, a Goldman Sachs guy, I believe, another Wall Street creature, got them to convince Bill Clinton that, no, we should do business with the butchers of Beijing. It's good for everybody. It's the hot fudge sundae diet. Have more of them. You'll lose more weight and you'll become healthy. And Bill Clinton turned around, and he became pro-China.
Right.
Because all of his top advisors were saying him, this is good. That's what they expected to happen with President Trump. But they were wrong. It didn't happen because President Trump has a backbone. He has a brain. He's not just some in it for myself. How can I be an opportunist and be a phony politician? That's not Trump.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, look, they every step of the way, they expected the Trump administration to be feckless like every other administration right down the line, right? They expected them to cave on the tariffs, cave on this, cave on that. And what has always happened is they negotiate, they don't make any promises, they don't follow through on anything, they lie, they cheat, they steal, and it ends by some president claiming victory because they're doing something. And, of course, it's nothing. I mean, it's no different than when Obama went to Beijing and wanted them to join the Paris Climate Accord. And they said, yes, it's a great idea. We want to really protect the planet. Tell you what we'll do. We're going to be building a coal plant a month for the next 40 years. We don't have any restrictions on it. But I tell you what, in 2050, come back and we're going to take a serious look at it. Obama goes back and he says, I got to deal with them. I mean, that's what they do.
That's what they do. And it's interesting to see what they did in this last round when President Trump just walked away from the deal, the so-called deal, for months now. And it's been, since December 1st. For months they've been negotiating this deal. We postponed the tariff increase, because progress is being made in the talks, good progress is being made in the talks. Then at the last minute, after we hear a deal is imminent, President Xi is going to come to Washington. There's going to be a big signing ceremony. It's just been wonderful. Everything's going along great. We have a good deal. At the last minute, the Chinese put a red line through the whole thing. No, we can't agree to this, can't agree to that. They knocked out half the deal, at least half the deal. What they did, and this, I was talking to a businessman who's done business in China. He said, this is standard operating procedure for the Chinese. What they do is they lead you along. You get emotionally invested in the deal. You're reported back to your boss at the home office in New York or Washington or L.A. or Chicago. Yeah, we're really close to a deal. We've been negotiating for 3 weeks, for 3 months, for 6 months. We've ironed everything out. It's been very tough, but we're there. And then when you are now totally invested in making a deal, and you have convinced your higher-ups that you've been doing a good job, working hard, getting something, that's when the Chinese pull the rug out from under you the last minute, and you are so invested in it, and you've told everybody in the company that it's going to happen, that you agree to their new, changed, stricter terms. Better for them, terms that are better for the Chinese but worse for you. But you just can't go back and say, oh, well, the whole thing's been a waste of time. Trump had the nerve to say, this whole thing's been a waste of time. You people aren't serious. You have no desire to make a deal. You have no desire to stop cheating, stop stealing, which gets to really, let's step back for a minute, John, and everybody listening. Let's step back and look at how absurd this whole thing is. We all acknowledge, everybody, there is not one of these bedwetters on cable TV that says, oh, my God, we're going to pay more for a T-shirt. We're going to have to pay more for bed sheets and pillowcases. Oh, my God, this is horrible. Nobody disputes the fact that China has been cheating.
Right.
They have been hacking into our computers and stealing our personal information, our trade secrets, our military secrets. There have been no dispute to that. They've been conducting cyber espionage. They have been just every dirty trick in the book. They've been doing it. Nobody disputes that.
Look what they did to the Italian government, the new sovereign Italian government, the Salvini government there, whoever the new prime minister. They put listening devices in all their phones that they sell to the Italians that go to the government so they can spy on the Italian government. And it's supposed to be, oh, well, we didn't mean to do that. It's a spying device that, shouldn't have been there. All this nonsense.
But here's the point. So now we're negotiating with the thief, right? So we acknowledge that China has been stealing our trade secrets, forcing companies to turn over all their blueprints and plans and everything else, violating copyright laws, and we're having negotiations with these people, essentially saying, "Please stop stealing from us. Can we negotiate the terms so you could please stop stealing from us?" This would be like after Pearl Harbor. We sit down with the Japanese and say, "Would you please stop bombing our Navy bases?" I mean, this is absurd. They are stealing from us. We know they're stealing from us. Why are we negotiating with them? Why do we not just do what President Trump is doing, saying, "You want to steal from us? No, thank you. Can't steal from us. Stop stealing from us. We can do business. Until then, I'm going to find ways to punish you."
No.
I mean, it's absurd.
Well, it's just like
we're the most powerful country in the world. We hold all the high cards. They need to sell their junk in our country. Otherwise, they don't have the money to be building military bases around the world. And we're negotiating. We're acting like, oh, we have to let them continue stealing from us. Maybe they'll steal just a little bit less. That's all these people who say, well, we could make a deal with China. We need to make a deal with China. They're willing to accept we'll make a deal with China. If they agree to stop stealing a little less from us, we'll go back to business as usual.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America, with Curtis Ellis. Curtis, Senior Policy Advisor, America First Policies. So, Curtis, you're right. And you got the bedwetters out there talking about, we're not going to be able to buy pillowcases, or a can of Pabst Blue Ribbon is going to cost a penny more, or whatever other nonsense that they spew out. But really, the ally they've really had, along with the complicit U.S. government, is Wall Street, it's Goldman Sachs, and it's other financial houses in London, Paris, around the globe that look the other way, because at the end of the day, they make more money with outsourcing stuff to China because of cheap labor, cheap cost of production, dumping goods, China's subsidizing goods. So they in the short term, they make more money. So they have been all complicit in this, haven't they?
That's right. They make more money by making these deals to outsource jobs. And also now, all the money that China has made, a lot of these people are now putting that money into Goldman Sachs, into Wall Street, right? So the brokers, the Wall Street brokers, are managing books, managing portfolios, investment portfolios that are made up largely of Chinese money. So the Wall Street folks are making money at both ends on the China trade, on the China deal. What they have forgotten in the process is this little thing called the United States of America, the country that respects private property and allowed them to become rich, fat, and lazy in the first place. They're ready to forget about that because now they see Chinese gold, and it's blinded them to the basic American values.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, Wall Street is acted. It's been said they've acted as unregistered foreign agents of the Chinese government. They are advocating, these Wall Street people are advocating for the Chinese Communist Party line. It's astounding. It's astounding. Communism does not recognize private property. But you've got Wall Street, which is supposed to be Mr. Moneybags, right? The picture of the capitalist system advocating for the communists. It's crazy. That's the other absurd thing. That's like us negotiating. Please stop stealing from us. Would you please stop stealing from us, China?
Yeah, just like as part of the negotiation, we'll give you something if you stop robbing us blind. I mean, it's the thing is so absurd, and yet we've gone with this, Curtis, for 30 years. We're with Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor for America First Policies. Curtis Ellis also on the Trump campaign team 2016. Also, Curtis was on the transition team and a former senior executive in the United States Department of Labor. So he knows what he's talking about. We've been fighting these battles with China for a long time. Finally, we have somebody that stands up to them, that understands their threat. And he understands also the president is playing a game he cannot lose, right? He cannot lose.
That's right.
We have a $500 billion trade deficit. Our money going to them. So they don't have anything to play with. Eventually they run out of chips and he wins the game.
Right, exactly. And if some people say, well, they hold all this debt, they hold so much of our treasury notes, they can sell them all. Well, if they dump all of the treasury bonds, if China dumps all the treasury bonds it holds, what that does is it drives down the price of treasuries, and they won't dump them all. If they dump some of them, it just destroys the value of that which they continue to hold. And if they sell them all, what do they do with the money? They can't do anything with the money. Nobody can do anything with the money. They have an unloaded gun. They're a paper tiger.
Why can't they do it?
Let's put this in perspective, though. Look, we're coming up on Memorial Day here, and then the following week, President Trump goes to Normandy. It's the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Right.
We are in a confrontation with a totalitarian system that has said it wants to take over the world. China wants to take over the world.
Right.
At which point it will now impose on the entire world its digital surveillance system, its social credit system, which tracks what you buy, what you read, what you post on the internet, where you go. If you don't toe the party line, you're given this digital score, which means you can't get a good job, you can't even get a plane ticket. You have to walk to where you're going because you can't get on an airplane. You can't get an apartment. So it controls every part of your life. And then it tells all your neighbors. So your neighbors start throwing tomatoes at you when you walk down the street because your cell phone is giving off horrible sounds telling everybody you're a creep. I'm not making this up. I am not exaggerating. For once, I'm not exaggerating. This is exactly what is going on in China today, along with putting people in concentration camps, forcing women to have abortions, and every other horror you can think of, bulldozing churches. So that's what China has in store for us, for the world, if we let them take over the world. President Trump is standing up to them. On Memorial Day, we remember the people who are buried in cemeteries at Arlington and around the country because they were willing to lay down their lives to protect our way of life and our freedoms. What we're being asked to do now is maybe we'll have to pay a few cents more on a discretionary purchase of something made in China. Or guess what? We won't buy something made in China. We'll buy something made in the USA instead. Maybe it costs a few cents more, but it means that our neighbors have jobs, and it means that we will continue to have a country. That's a very small sacrifice to make.
Great way to wrap, Curtis Ellis. Thanks for being with us. Senior Policy Advisor, America First Policies.